Good afternoon. Okay. Good afternoon or morning or evening to everyone from wherever you're joining. I don't know what time zone you are in, but thank you for joining the webinar. I am Smitesh. The good thing is you do not have to remember any of that because my role is just to introduce to our speaker today. His name you should definitely remember, Emmanuele. He's the co-founder and managing partner of Lira. Lira specializes in helping high potential companies access the funding they require to scale up. Personally, Emmanuele has been involved in the startup scene over the last 2 decades, both in creating new ventures and also on mentoring startups. He also mentors new graduates in their career path. We are in great hands today as I hand over the reins to Emmanuele so he can talk to us about the European Innovation Council funding programs. Emmanuele?
Perfect. Thanks, Mitesh. So as Mitesh said, my name is Emmanuele. I am one of the managing directors of Lira. Lira was set up at the end of 2019, and we specialize in the 3 funding schemes within the European Innovation Council. Today's presentation is going to be on the EIC Accelerator, which is the most coveted EU funding scheme. I'm going to share my screen, and please remember that for the registered participants, they will have access to the presentation and the recording of this webinar. Okay, so just interrupt me if there's any technical issue. So today we're going to talk about the EIC Accelerator. A lot of entrepreneurs all across Europe, they know the EIC Accelerator, but still a lot of entrepreneurs there underestimate the complexity of the EIC Accelerator and what it takes to get funded through the EIC Accelerator. And the way we present it, we call it the perfect funding scheme for startups and scale-ups. But the startups and scale-ups, they have to be deep tech. So let's start from a sort of analogy. So we compare the EIC Accelerator to the Champions League. Why? Because not all the companies out there can be part of it, and is a very competitive funding scheme, and thousands of companies apply every year. So first and foremost, what are the companies, the startups and scale-ups that can apply to the EIC Accelerator? They have to have a breakthrough technology, they have to be deep tech, and they have to have a solution that is going to disrupt the market. I understand that for a lot of you, these can sound like a lot of buzzwords, but let's define deep tech. For sure, a complex pharma molecule is deep tech. A fintech solution, not necessarily. Of course, there are a lot of interesting vertical marketplaces. Are they deep tech enough for the EIC Accelerator? I'm afraid they are not. And what about medtech companies? As long as the medtech companies are class 3 or class 2B or class 2A, they are a perfect fit, but they had to go through preclinical validation at least. Then the companies, they have to have a strong IPR, which doesn't mean necessarily patents, but copyright and other intangible assets, like for instance, trademarks or other ways to protect their intangible assets in a way that could guarantee their competitive advantage over time. And at the same time, they have to have a world-class team with the right entrepreneurial mindset. As I was saying at the beginning, the solution, technology, or the service has to have the potential to disrupt the market or to create a new market. And they have to be in capital-intensive industry, because one of the key objectives of the EIC funding, EIC Accelerator funding, is to deploy capital in a patient way where a lot of capital is required to succeed. I was saying that it's highly competitive. So there are 3 steps in the selection process: short application, full application, face-to-face. And at the moment, from full application to become a winner, the success rate is 8%. Between 2021 and 2022, 391 companies were funded through this funding scheme, okay? And this is important. It's a funding scheme. It's not an R&D grant. So we were talking about the selection process. You have to be aware that every year they allocate around 1 billion euros for this funding scheme, and they want the technology to be at the TRL in between 5 and 6. But if it's 6, that would be definitely better. So that means that you have to have a proof of concept, an MVP, or enough preclinical evidence to show that the first results are positive. But still, there's a lot of room for improvement, and you need the grant component to further the risk on the product development. There are 4 funding options: grant first, grant only, blended finance, and equity only. But the 2 most popular ones are blended finance and grant only, because in this funding scheme, aside from the grant component, there's an equity component. So the grant component, and we're going to see it, is up to 2.5 million. Funding rate is 70%. And the equity component is up to 15 million euros in equity raised from the EIC fund. In duly justified cases, you can ask even more than 15 million euros. But we will talk about that in the next slides. Then who can apply? If you read through the 2023 EIC work program, in theory, aside from startups and scale-ups, you can even have spin-outs or individuals or, let's say, SMEs that are still within the limits of the official definition of SMEs by the European Commission. However, what we are seeing, analyzing all the data, you see more and more scale-ups being funded at the moment. The application process includes 3 steps: the short application, full application, face-to-face interview. It takes time, and the most decisive moment is the face-to-face interview. So let's talk about 2023. Even if, now we are in April, the way it works is the short application is always open. For the full application, you have preset cutoff dates. This year, for the open call, we had 4. For the challenge calls, just 3, okay? So open was January, March, June, October. For the challenge calls, just March, June, October. The budget was split for the open calls. So open calls, any company from any industry can apply. Challenge calls, they are well defined and they're very specific to well-defined, well-explained industries and applications. In terms of grants, the max that a company can ask is up to 2.5. That means that because of the funding rate of 70%, companies, to get the max of the grant component, they have to go for a 3.4 million euros project. The EIC will cover 70% of the costs, so 2.5, and the company has to show where the remaining 900,000 is coming from. Equity of max 15 million, but in duly justified case, they can ask for more than 15 million euros. But in that case, has to be part of a round where a private investor should be the lead investor in that specific round. In terms of, before the fully fledged EIC Accelerator program, we had the EIC pilot, so I only took into account the cumulative data since the launch of the fully fledged program in 2021. So the program has been run for 2 years. I didn't include the data from the January and March cutoff dates. So in 2 years, more than 5,000 applications were sent, 1,000 companies invited to the face-to-face interview, but only 391 were funded. So as you can see, even if they allocated more than 2 billion euros, 391 companies were successful, and the success rate from sending a full application to become a winner is 8%. So how does it work? It's pretty straightforward. It's an online platform, so you don't have to write the documentation on a PDF and then submit the PDF. It's a live platform, and you start from the diagnostic module, where they assess your business readiness level, your TRL, and the degree of innovation. It's mandatory, it's time-consuming, and I have to say that gives good indication about the fit of the technology and the company for the funding scheme. Then you go through the short application. The short application is again online form, is at least 21 questions, 1,000 characters included, including spaces, 10 slides deck, which is not a pitch deck, bear in mind, and then 3 minutes video. So the slides deck is to create a sort of compendium for the information you put on the online form. The 3 minutes video, nothing major. They don't require a Hollywood production. It's just they want to see the founders, why the technology is deep tech, why it's breakthrough, and why the company is requiring the support of the EIC. Everything is sent to 4 remote evaluators, and within 4 to 6 weeks, they send you their evaluation summary report, and a company has to get 2 full go out of 4 to get to the full application. Otherwise, they are rejected and they have to start again. Bear in mind that they introduced a new rule, which is called the cooling off period. So for companies failing to go from one step of the process to the next one twice, they enter the cooling off period. That means that for 12 months, they're going to be prevented from resubmitting their application. If you get invited to the full application, and bear in mind, the dates are preset on the work program. And let's remind our kind audience that this year, the 4 dates for the open call were January, March, June, and October. For the challenge calls were March, June, and October. But for companies starting now, they should be targeting October, not June, because there's no time. Why there's no time? The full application is like running a marathon. So you have an online form with more than 104 questions, meaning that we estimated that to put together all the documentation what companies required to write almost 120 pages. Then there's a pitch deck. Pitch deck, bear in mind, no slide deck. The pitch deck is there because if invited to the face-to-face interview, the company will use the pitch deck for the face-to-face interview. And then there's a financial annex, which is an Excel spreadsheet where you have to tell the story about the company in figures. So you have to talk about, you know, the projected revenues, the balance sheet, cash flow, and so on. So everything is sent to 3 remote evaluators. And to get invited to the face-to-face interview, you have to get a full go from each remote evaluator. If you then get just one no-go from one remote evaluator, you're not going to be invited to the face-to-face interview. This year, they introduced a new rule. In case of a full application resubmission, and the company gets just one no-go from a remote evaluator, a 4th remote evaluator will be asked to evaluate that single no-go and then to decide if the company in reality should be invited to the face-to-face interview or not. The cooling off period applies to the full application as well. The most decisive moment, and that's what all the consulting firms out there, apart from us, understood how to treat when it comes to train the teams. This is the most decisive moment. So companies are invited to the face-to-face interview, which lasts 45 minutes. 10 minutes on the pitch deck previously submitted at the face-to-face interview stage, and then 35 minutes interview with 5 jury members. Imagine this, each jury member will ask at least 3 questions. So you have to be straight to the point, you have to be well prepared, and you have to be able to handle the pressure really, really well. And above all, you have to have what it takes to win. Why? Because the jury members will decide if you're going to get awarded the funding or not. Now, this is pretty complex because what can happen at face-to-face interview is best case scenario, you are deemed eligible for funding, you start the process to sign the grant agreement, and in parallel, you start the process to negotiate the equity component with the EIC fund or the European Investment Bank. 2 separate processes, best case scenario. Then there's another scenario where they give you a potential go, they are not fully convinced, so they ask you to come back to the next face-to-face interview. Then there's a rejection with a seal of excellence. They say, okay, we think that you are not ready to get funded, but you get seal of excellence because in certain countries, they have the possibility to fund companies that received seal of excellence, which is different from the past, bear in mind. Or in other cases, you don't get any still excellence, you are rejected, and then you have to start the process again. Does the cooling off period rule apply to step number 3? Yes. Now, let's talk about how to prepare for the face-to-face interview. And again, there are very few companies in my experience that are already prepared for this experience. So they have to go through a lot of training with the right consultants. This is just my opinion. So the 10 minutes, you have to have a compelling pitch deck. So remember, the pitch deck you submit at the full application stage will be used for the face-to-face interview. So you cannot mess up with your pitch deck, okay? Then you have to have only one person presenting within the 10 minutes. So I've seen companies submitting 40 slides pitch deck. That was a big mistake. And how to be successful, like in anything in life, it's work hard, a lot of commitment, a lot of passion, a lot of work, because you will compete with companies from all across Europe and all the associated countries. What is particularly appreciated by the jury members, as you can see from my slide, it's passion, ambition, commitment, determination, knowledge, competence, expertise, experience, work ethic, and the right attitude. So megalomaniac personalities, egomaniac personalities, arrogance will never make you successful with the jury members and in life in general. How long does it take to prepare an application from short to full? Unfortunately, out there are a lot of misrepresentation and misunderstanding. If the success rate from full to become a winner is 8%, that means that you have to spend a lot of time on creating a document that is almost perfect. So quality is paramount. In our opinion, it would take, let's say, 1 month to put together the short application. Best case scenario, 3 months, the full application, and then at least 2 weeks to prepare for the face-to-face interview. If you don't have 2 weeks, but you have 1 week, so that means that you have to prepare exclusively on the face-to-face interview during that week. So these are the suggested timelines. And again, this is not a funding scheme for everyone, really competitive. If you don't have what it takes, do not go for it. You're wasting your time. And you're gonna find all the information you need, updates on data and stats and tips and hints on DIH Accelerator on our section on our website. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Now I'm ready for the Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel. I don't see any Q&A questions in the chat. I don't know if any of the participants have any questions. Please feel free to write them in the Q&A section or in the chat. I can pick it up from there. Emmanuel, maybe a question just to break the ice a bit for everybody. Is there any indication of what kind, I know you mentioned deep tech, but is there any indication of preferred sectors of industry which EIC targets to?
Yeah. So every year I publish a report where I analyze all the winners. So I did analyze 391 companies based on the data. And again, this is not my personal opinion. This is just an indication of the data I analyzed and the analysis I did of all the winners. So one of the strongest sector or industry is life science. So when I'm talking about life science, I'm referring to medtech, biotech, pharma, bioinformatics, and a specific kind of digital health. I can give an example in digital health. On digital health, you have to have a combination of computer vision and machine learning for the early prognosis of, let's say, prostate cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, other types of cancer. So something that has a real impact in the real world, okay? And that's when it comes to life science. Then another hot sector in Europe is quantum computing. Another one is energy, okay? Smitesh, probably we have a question. Okay, can I, okay, I'm gonna, from Robert. Okay, how do you offer support? What is your pricing and business model for this support? How many companies have you worked with? How many were successful? Okay, now, Robert, I'm not here to sell my services. And this question, I'm going to reply to this question. I'm going to reply about the best practices. You're not supposed to ask me what is my business model, my pricing structure. You're supposed to ask me what it takes to become a winner, okay? So let me put it this way. This industry is full of incompetent people, right? So if you know that from full application to become a winner, the success rate is 8%, what you're supposed to do is to have a look at the list of winners, right? And specifically in your sector to understand, okay, what do they support? What they get funded? That's the first thing you're supposed to do. Then the second thing you are supposed to do, because everything is publicly available, is to talk to your national contact point and understand more about this program and understand how it works. Then the third thing is when you're trying to get a consultant on board, you shouldn't be asking about the pricing or business model. You should find out if that consultant has the expertise, know-how, experience, and someone who can understand the science behind the technology, the business, and so on. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. This morning, we're talking to a company in the energy storage sector. And what I did, I introduced my managing partner who has a background in energy, right? And the company was particularly happy because they were speaking the same language. So you have to find someone who understands your technology, your company, your industry, your business, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to ask that person, okay, are you going to work with me on the application? And how are you going to work on the application with me? Okay. And then the third thing you're going to ask is, what's your track record? You can't start from the pricing or the business model. You have to assess if the consultant or the consulting firm or whoever you're talking to has the expertise, experience, and know-how to work with you. I'll give you an example. We've been approached by companies doing quantum computing. We have no one in our company working on quantum computing. And we told them, sorry, we don't have the expertise. And we referred them to one of our colleagues from the association, the European Association of Innovation Consultants, that I'm part of, and I'm part of the task force on the EIC. And we introduced the company to one of our colleagues. Why? Because one, they have the expertise, experience, and know-how. Two, they have the right work ethics. Three, they have the track record. Never, ever start from the pricing and the business model. Otherwise, you might find yourself with an incompetent person or an incompetent consulting that doesn't have any experience in your sector, and you're going nowhere. Sorry, Smitesh, but I have to tell the guys how it works because
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that and also read the question. So the question Robert asked was how many, like how do you offer support and what is your pricing and so on. Your suggestion is that they should look at it as a whole. What kind of support do they need? What kind of support can the consultant offer?
Yeah. Do you want me to do? Do you want me to do the sales guy? We are the no. I'm going to tell him. So the first Italian company ever to be awarded 17.5 million was Energy Dome, our client. The first Irish company to be awarded 17.5 million, it was our client, TFI Marine. The only Israeli company that got the EIC Accelerator after submitting in January is our client, Paragate. The fourth Bulgarian company to be awarded funding by the EIC Accelerator ever, Checkpoint Cardio, was our client. Then I can mention Energy Robotics, I can mention the Magneterm and the other companies, but this is not the point. The point is you don't have to base your decision on only this aspect. You have to assess if the consultant or whoever you're trying to get on board understands what you do. This is really, really, really competitive. Sorry, Smitesh, I wanted just to clarify.
No, that's fine. And Robert, there is going to be the contact of Emmanuele and Lira in the slide deck. So if you do want to pursue this further, it is always a good idea to follow up with them offline, and maybe not in this webinar, to see how they can support you either through Lira or through one of the consultants of EIC, as Emmanuel mentioned. Thank you, Emmanuel. We do have another question. Where can we find startups by industry which succeeded? I assume I remember you mentioning this report that you produce. Is that something you can share the link for?
I'm gonna share the screen right now. If you give me 1 second, we're gonna go in Safari. So can you see the screen, guys?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Okay, it's called EISMEA Data Hubs. Okay, and that's where you can find all the different companies that were funded by the European Commission, by the EIC, by country. And they have a sort of, let's say, classification by industry that is too generic in my opinion. But here you can find all the information about the winners. And on top of that, every time there's the official communication from the European Commission on the winners, they publish the list of successful companies that I'm going to share with you in a second, okay? So give me just 1 second. Okay, so where are we? Here we go. Okay, that's the list. This is can you see it? Should I zoom in?
Yeah, you probably should zoom in a bit, because we see the list, but we cannot read anything on it at this point.
Sure, guys, 1 second. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah, I can somehow, not anymore.
Still zoom. No, don't worry. Okay, can you see it now?
A bit more, few more.
Now, guys?
One more, maybe?
No problem.
Thanks.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's better.
So yeah, everything is public. Everything is out there. Everything is available. So in January, do you remember? So in 2023, 4 cutoff dates for the open call: January, March, June, and October. So these are the 32 companies deemed eligible for funding after submitting in January. Everything is public. So you find the 32 companies here. So remember the website. On their website, then you have the list, you have the PDF. This is a PDF document. And here you find the name of the company, the project acronym, short description, then the funding type, the website, and the country, okay? So what I do when I do my analysis, I always go on the website of the company, on their LinkedIn page, and on their Crunchbase profile. And then I do an analysis of the founders as well, okay? So everything is public. So here you can have a look at the different companies and the sectors they are in. You can imply the sectors by going on their websites, okay? This was an open call, so you're not gonna see the challenge call winners, because that would start from March, okay? And here you're gonna find the funding type. Bear in mind that for the UK, they can only go for grant only, okay? So again, guys, everything is public. You can check everything online, okay? Mitesh?
Yeah, I'm just checking if there are any other questions. So one of the next questions is, are there examples of the 3-minute videos of the winners which may be available somewhere?
No, because it's confidential under NDA. You can't do that. Then let me reply to Robert. Thanks. Agreed on Emmanuel's point, though. It would be good to know what to expect and plan for. Robert, get in touch on LinkedIn and let's have a discussion offline. But what you can expect is, I can tell you, so if you like the consultant and you have done your due diligence on the consultant, you have to expect the consultant to have a strong plan in place. So from short to full, at least 3 months. So for instance, if you are planning to submit in October, you should be starting working on your short with the consultant at least by the 8th of June, okay? Then the other thing is you have to have a plan in place, and you need to work with consulting. You need to understand, okay, when I'm going to deliver the short application, the slide deck, and the 3 minutes video. That's the first thing. Then while working on the full application, what are the other documents that I have to upload on top of the ones that I have to use for the full application? So the consultant and you have to be really knowledgeable about what it takes and what you're supposed to do. You have to plan in advance. And in certain cases, double check with your national contact point, because every member state and associate country has a national contact point that is extremely knowledgeable about the funding scheme. And always use data and stats and publicly available information to assess if you have a good case for funding or not. Smitesh?
Thank you. Maybe a general question. Are there any other sources of information that the entrepreneurs should be aware of, which could help them in their pursuit of EIC funding?
I would always recommend to go through official channels, and the official channels are the national contact points.
Thank you.
No problem.
The next question I see is for the interview part. How does the rest of the team participate beside the founder or somebody who is, I'm assuming it doesn't have to be the founder who presents, but there's only one person presenting during the interview.
Pitch deck.
Yeah.
No. The interview,
okay.
No. The way it works is a 45 minutes. On the 10 minutes pitch deck, just one person. And that person should be the founder and CEO, or the founder and chief tech officer, but has to be someone with a big stake into the company. Then for the Q&A, max 3 people. And the 3 people, they have to be either founders with shares or someone under an employment contract. But in all the cases we are working on, we always have the 3 founders that still own the majority of the shares. That's the best case scenario. Then you have to read through the requirements. And when invited to the face-to-face interview, they want to see either people with shares in the company or people that are employed by the company. In our case, it's always the 3 key people that are the 3 founders that still own the majority of the shares and understand the company, the technology, the science, the business, the IPR inside out. Okay?
Yeah. Can I ask one point of clarification? So is it 3 in total, or is it 3 plus 1 who is presenting?
No, 3 in total. 3 in total. Max total. 3 people. Max 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah, you have cases where you had 2 people as well, but the max is 3. Then out of the 391, there was a case of European scientists who moved from the US to Europe, but it's just an outlier, because you always have to consider, out of the 391, then you do an analysis, right? And you always have to consider, okay, what are the most common patterns of successful applicants, right? Again, the 3 founders that still own the majority of the shares and understand anything about, the science, the technology, the IPR, the market, and so on.
Okay.
Questions?
Thank you. Any other questions from the crowd? This has been a good interaction, but okay, let's give it a moment. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, Emmanuele. So I would like to thank you all for joining the webinar, and especially you, Emmanuele, for delivering a very detailed and concise process and also answering the questions of our participants. As Gwen mentioned at the start, the slides and the recording will be available. So I just see a late question coming in. Are there any other funding schemes other than the EIC, the big funding schemes,
I'm going to reply like this, right? So Horizon Europe is a 95 billion 7-year framework program. There are 3 pillars and 700 R&D grants and funding schemes. Get in touch with your national contact point, because each member state and associate country has different people working on Horizon Europe, and they will provide you with all the information you need. One that is similar but slightly different is called InnoFund, but it's for a specific industry and for specific companies. In our case, we are specialized in 3 funding schemes within the European Innovation Council, so Pathfinder Transition Accelerator. And I would encourage all the entrepreneurs to be proactive and to look up by themselves and to contact their national contact points. Always go through the official channels, because there's a lot of misrepresentation and really useless marketing out there. Always go through the official channels, double check with your national contact point, understand what is the best funding source for you, and then go for it. Mitesh?
Yeah, thank you. I hope now we have answered all the questions. Thank you again. I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point. So as Gwen mentioned, the slides will be available. Okay, I see something coming in again. Okay, I'm sorry for this, Emmanuel. How is it perceived when you have other, I am not sure what the word is supposed to be.
Funding before. I think this means how is it perceived?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, funding before. Okay, probably this question refers to when they had the non-bankability rule. So because of the nature of certain companies being deep tech and being a capital intensive industry, they expect companies to have gone through a pre-seed and seed. So doing the analysis, and I have to be straightforward, I see more scale-ups rather than spin-outs being successful. So companies that went already through, let's say, a pre-seed and seed with private investors, companies that leveraged regional and national grants to bring their TRL to TRL 5 to 6 or 6, they are perceived in a positive way. Yeah, I mean, public funding from other state sources. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. So you have a lot of medtech companies. For instance, I can give you the example of Ireland and Israel. So in Ireland, you have Enterprise Ireland, and in Israel, you have Israel, right? So you have national grants that are funding R&D activities from TRL 1 to TRL 4, and then from TRL 4 to TRL 6. So it's common for these companies to avail of national R&D grants and pre-seed and seed from private investors, and then they go for the EIC Accelerator, especially in the life science industry and energy sector. Mitesh?
Okay. Yes. Okay, third time's the charm. Let's see. I'm gonna give 1 minute to see if any other question comes up. Let's just see that. But meanwhile, the slides and the recordings will be available to you via email. They will also be uploaded on our website. There will be a short survey after this, so please do provide feedback for it. And there it is. That's my third time the charm. What are the key points for success? I think, Robert, you already covered them a bit.
Yeah, the key points for success are several points. So first and foremost, as a company, one has to understand, okay, what's the overall success rate from full to become a winner? It's 8%, so it's not for everyone. So to understand the competitive nature of the program, 1. 2, to understand what it takes to be successful. Okay, I have to go through a short application. Let me wait for the feedback from the remote evaluator from the short application to see if I have to fine tune or if there's a critical area I have to address. Then you go for the full application, and then you know that you have to prepare really, really well for the face-to-face interview. At the same time, have a look at the companies that were funded. Do analyze the companies that were funded in your sector and try to understand what they had that make them successful. Probably they had a world-class team. Probably they had the right IPR. IPR stands for intellectual property rights, which is not just patents. So it's patents, copyright, trademark, and so on. Probably they are in an industry, a market segment that is destined to grow more than other market segments. Probably they are in a specific area that represents a strategic priority for the European Commission. Probably they have already a plan that is well defined to explain how they're going to be successful once they get to the market. Probably they have all the skill set in the team, not only from a scientific and technical point of view, but even from a business point of view, to explain how they're going to enter the market and expand within the market. Probably they have the right level of support from private investors that are going to contribute towards the remaining cost, the project costs and following rounds. Probably they have a crystal clear freedom to operate, showing that once they enter the market, no one is going to bring them to court because they are infringing other corporations' IPR rights and so on. So again, takes time, it's really competitive. You have to do your homework, and then you have to assess if it's the case to go for it or not. I'll give you an example. Every now and then I receive requests from fintech companies or from vertical marketplaces or SaaS companies. I tell them straight away, sorry guys, but you're not deep tech enough. You're not going to get funded through this program. If there's, for instance, a medtech company with a class 3 implantable device, is a different story. If there's a bioinformatics company with a CTO that has been working on developing that technology for the last 10 years and has raised millions of euros through R&D grants offered by their regional government or by national funding agencies, and they have a clear way to show that they brought that specific technology to the TRL 6, that's a good case for funding, right? Okay, how to find a business coach with relevant expertise when applying from a niche market, precision farming. I would, in that case, I would ask your national counterpoint because it's really specific. I don't have the answer for you, I'm afraid. How big the market size has to be in the no, it's the market opportunity. So the market, how big the market size to be in Euro? No, so first and foremost, they're looking for companies, European companies that can become a global player. To become a global player in a specific market segment, the market segment has to be relevant to become a global player. So that market segment probably has to be worth around billions of euros. At least this would be my experience. If your market segment is worth 50 million euros, probably the company doesn't have the ambition to become a global player. Okay. Mitesh?
Okay. 4 times the charm? I don't know at this point. Okay. I think I have said what I wanted to say. I'm gonna just give one final minute for one final question, if there is one. If not, then I thank you all for joining, and Emmanuele, you for the great presentation and sticking around for the questions which keep flowing in. Okay, I don't see.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why, but my okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. Then I thank you, everybody. There will be a short survey after the Zoom is closed, which you will receive. Please do provide feedback on both the sessions and what kind of other topics you would like to see in the future. Thank you, everybody, for joining the webinar, and I wish you a nice day ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.